Alright, this is part 3 of the development log. I'm reading this part right here that says development log. That is from when the game used to be a live action role-playing game. When Realm Builder was primarily designed as that, and then eventually I changed it, so we'll get to that. The criteria for each victory will be, did I survive? If not, did any other non-monster survive? If so, you are still considered as having passed that campaign. Did another non-monster survive? Then they are considered as surviving and going on as well if they stayed alive during that LARP event. To clarify, if not, your character does not get another victory under your belt, but you can still retain new things you gained. So if you got a bit of treasure or experience and you died, you can still progress the next time you go to the live action game. So this will be how your character levels up, but you go by these ordeal counts. Your character magnitude goes up by 1 every time you had survive an apocalypse or hold off an apocalypse. This will also curtail player killing, as it will be in everyone's mutual benefit if everyone lives. So it's like this apocalyptic, everyone's trying to stay alive scenario. You're not going to be like stabbing each other in the back if you can help each other survive and benefit from it. And this enhances the post-apocalyptic theme. So to simplify the game, you start with, my character is a blank class, and I'm good at blank, and then in brackets, basic weapon, shield, spell, or armor proficiency as allowed by class. Some classes that have main stats, such as hilarity and scariness, will have more obscure / tabletop games as their proficiency, better to beat the protagonist and other players with. So that was when I had the LARP has tabletop elements included into it, and then eventually I changed it to be more pure tabletop than not really LARP, but I still have all these notes for it to be LARP. Maybe someday it can be a live action game where people are running around hitting each other with foam swords. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So these kind of proficiencies in scariness and hilarity, or these other like more niche ones, are better to beat the protagonist and / other players with. So we're talking about the NPCs, the people that are playing as the goblins and the monsters or whatever, are going to have these different kinds of abilities to battle with. Sometimes they will also gain ordeal points by destroying all other humans, marking them as antagonists. So I guess you could start off as a player character and then get to be an antagonist because of your actions in the LARP. So who are the game masters? On the side, or a player who was unlucky enough to be delegated as someone who for that session only wins through no one surviving. This should crank up the paranoia, and it will no doubt be fun colluding with the GM and his cronies against the party every now and then. So it might be fun to not always play as the player, but to play as the antagonistic monsters in a LARP. So I have some ideas for good types of antagonist characters. A mummy that summons a bunch of swarms. So I kind of got inspired from this game Stone Soup, where you can play as a mummy and you can play as a conjurer. That's one of the class race combinations I tried. So another one's a shaman who calls ghosts to fight the party. The next part of the development log. I was playing this game one night, Ultimate Werewolf, and it made me think a lot about my game, in particular the eyes closed mechanic, deception, learning time, how long it takes to learn your game. My only complaint about that game was there's too much time doing nothing, but that could be lessened with faster narrating. A blind spell could be pretty useful and not too annoying if it only lasted 10 seconds. Like if you shoot a beanbag at someone and hits them, they're blinded for 10 seconds or some other time. Drawing abilities for the board game version, letting you use a combination of stats and real-life ability. A power that cancels illusions, such as mirror image, so you can just focus on fighting. A power of passive boosts to your miniature strength. So there was like specific classes, such as like the philosopher, who would be have more powers that are tied with fighting on the tabletop. How to explain that is both hilarious and scary is that it is like the messed up special effects in Evil Dead or other movies. That's if your character has stats and scariness and hilarity. You start to have to like role play and think about like how your character works, having different combinations of stats. An idea for a game variant: instead of just each player trading for and owning the cards, each player helps decide the card pool. Basically, each player puts in cards they don't want, and the whole thing is shuffled into one tower. And this should be a purely tabletop format. Being able to choose is basically an easier type of deck building. This should turn into a battle royale. I feel like once you enter this game, it should be unlimited battles, escapable only by running away into the real world or by character loss. This should be a main theme of the game, that it is built for the indefatigable and there is no final way of winning, no sub-objectives and alternatives methods of winning can become the whole game. Ulterior motives, crafted ideas of victory are a big thing to work your strategy around, or be suspicious from other players in a battle royale type game, that is. Spells cast from cards are different from spells cast from a person via their class or special ability. You have to hold the card and say the spell name to use it. Thrown or shot spells are used right away, while ones delivered from melee hits are cast on hit. So if you're casting a spell that procs off of your weapon hitting them, that's separate. Doesn't have to land a beanbag or projectile or whatever. If you want to use a spell ranged, you have to keep holding the card while you use it, which is then the spell is then used up regardless of whether it hits or not. So if you cast the spell and it misses, that still uses up one of your spells. When a card is used up, it goes to your microcosm, which is where you belong, and only certain cards are affected. This is like a theory crafting for like a separate zone. I didn't really hold on to this, so this is the microcosm, and you get teleported to when your deck is emptied and you end your turn. You can still save yourself with the right cards. So say you die in the LARP where you go, there's like a reset zone that you have to walk to. Badges of resistance are health bonuses to easily display, so people are going around battling and it's like visible that you have like a health enchantment or like an armor enchantment, which would, like, if you're like imagining how things are going in the role-playing game, you're like imagining like a field or like some energy adding to them. So like when you're battling, like it adds to the imagination and it's conveniently there. It's not going out of the way for the LARP. A party system where you can say if you want more people in it or not, and if you accept, then people with no party can join. Some cards will be only usable by solo adventurers. Each item that is something you want to gain proficiency in can be leveled up universally. Machine guns, pistols, two-handed swords. So that's more, the guns is more for when it was the LARP, is people using Nerf guns, so you could level up your damage with like the Nerf pistol or the machine gun. Reading this and thinking about all my old notes for when this game was a LARP is making me want to play it as a LARP. I decided each player gets to choose only one thing besides class, such as a weapon or spell proficiency at start, not even an added option. Each ordeal increases your character's magnitude, measuring overall power, so that could be like the level up. Now we're beyond the part of in the development log, past where the LARP was when I was, so no longer notes about that. Need to start adding unit types on every card, such as fairy and human. This is something I learned from playing Magic the Gathering, and back in the day, the card creature types weren't as universally fixed. You're getting these Lurgoyfs, dwarfs, all these creatures that would never fit into a tribal deck because they're so niche. And then that's only something that came in later in Magic. So if you're just joining Magic now, then you're thinking, oh yeah, I got all these vampires and they all work together. But back in the day, that wasn't exactly how it works. So in my game, I'm trying to fix that a bit from the start, so that you can have like a human type deck or a fairy type deck or whatever. Found on the card. I have some notes about fixing the card templates in Photoshop, so there's no point in reading that. Created 3 rarity symbols and began ranking cards. Created diagram for object slots to go in the rulebook. I'll show that here. It's Card ratio in packs is 1 basic, 7 commons, 3 uncommons, 1 rare. The printing sheets will be designed accordingly. Got the idea for a draft mode, want to include a free-for-all mode, and inspired by Battle Royale, the movie. A board game edition of Realm Builder called Free For All Edition would contain enough decks for 4 people, miniatures, and terrain. That's separate from another idea I have for a product that's two players being able to start the game and battle each other. Realize how much printer supplies and money is needed to put out booster boxes. Can be lessened by printing other things like books, comics, prints, art prints, and other things listed in the business binder. This book I have that's just labeled business, that has all my ideas for that, separate from the Realm Builder book. Something, save money in the long run, specifically the large printers I saw. So I'm looking at getting that, or paying a third-party company to print the stuff. So my one friend suggested I not have decimal points and just put everything up times 10. If I did this, then things could cost 5 or 6, say, and the Fool only cost 4 instead of free. The Fool from the tarot card was summonable for free. Now he costs like 5 wealth. The new mechanic Research costs 1 instead of 0.1. Now, Research isn't part of the base game. It's part of the Realm Builder role-playing game, and it's in the rules for there. So I have this in here, made 33 pages of role-playing game. It's up to a lot more than that. It includes substat, races, character sheets. I have a director's guide as well, which is like the Dungeon Master's guide. And I have all these notes for here. That's something that's down the pipeline. It's not... I have to focus more on getting the booster boxes and booster packs in the hands of people, start getting out starter decks. I just have all these extra notes and stuff, but you're getting to hear about it and getting to hear about how the game's made because you're watching the development blog. Things to make, I've got a little list. Land tiles for box sets, expansions. I have made more than 4 things in Photoshop of grids that could be printed out on squares, and there are these cardboard squares, so if you don't have a lot of miniature terrain in a game board, you can still deploy on a nice little battlefield or add that to what you have. Determine outcome tables. Falling, so fall damage, how much you take, how many squares you have to fall for how much damage that is. Stabilizing while flying rules. So those are all tables you can find if you want to play this game more as role-playing. Director's guide things, a list. Campaign, classes, example characters, NPCs, villains. So you can find out lots of different information if you get these books. When they come out in the future, sorry, no set time. I don't want to say they can come out here. They'll be done when they're done. I want to get them printed out and out there in the hands of people, but the cards priorities have to come first. So the card back, I'll show some of the brainstorm because it's easy. It's better to show. So that's what it looks like when I make a brainstorm sometime, a circle thing and a web coming out. So if you couldn't read that, there's fantasy battles, can resemble front template. The title on the back, question mark. I ended up doing that. Cheap on ink, you gotta be thinking about what color it is. There's too much purple. That would be bad for costs of myself. So I did write down and think about it, but I just ended up using too much purple because I like purple a lot, I guess. The tarot suit, themes of swords, pentacles, cups, wands. This is the back of one of my tarot cards. So I thought about this in relation to how the backs are for that. Tarot card set design notes. Look through my art collection to think about how it's going to go, how I want to make them. So this is when I was still making the tarot card set. You can see a lot of that stuff on my Instagram. I've got the tarot cards so you can get a preview. Put check mark next to card when it's done to keep track. And if you saw before, I have my notes for the tarot cards, all what they are as cards in Realm Builder is in here. So when I complete a card, I check it off so that I can, when I'm going through, I'm like, oh, what do I do? It's easier to look at the page, and when you're scanning it with your eyes, you see check marks. Okay, I can skip past that one and look for more. Symbolism, Aquarius equals King of Swords. I'm not that big into astrology, but I do know a bit about the associations for how, if you don't know about this, Aleister Crowley, he kind of wrote extensively on how each of the different tarot cards is represented in astrology. So I know a bit about Aquarius, what the archetype of an Aquarian personality is like, because that's my birth month. So it's interesting for me to learn that and talk to see how to other people who are Aquarius and talk to that. But beyond that, I don't know too much. I have a note saying made new Realm Builder text for card back. I painted Realm Builder and I used that photoshopped onto another picture as the back for the Realm Builder card. So this is kind of like a product idea. What if you were to buy like a box set, what it would come like. I sketched out what if you were to buy a product that's not the booster pack or a single starter deck, but more of a big set where multiple people can all just play from this one box. The development log continued. Card mats. I have a little diagram here of what a card mat would look like if you were to buy it, which it's not necessary, but it's just like a little add-on you can use because you're going to have the miniatures on a game table, but I want to have my art available on card mats, and it even says spellbook here back when the cards that you've already cast they're in your spellbook so you can reuse them, but I eventually streamlined it to being graveyard because having a spellbook or purgatory I felt was too complicated. I kind of need to rein it in. If you're familiar with the phrase keep it simple stupid, I try to keep bringing it back to being more simple, more understandable, faster. So you can see how the video is 17 minutes in. This is part 3 of a game that's not even out yet, development series. You can see the importance of the philosophy behind that and why I keep coming back to it. Sid Meier, on designing civilization. Double things or cuts to them in half when you are working on something and get stuck in the valley of despair. That should cause a drastic enough change. This causes me to think about, in my game, how people have reacted to the wealth system as too slow. I want to double it instead of cut it in half, and my idea is to use tech trees. With a tech tree, you can use the research action consuming 1 wealth to progress 1 on the research tree of your choice. Some tech trees have requirements, such as you must have 1 water element to begin researching this water tree. Standard tree is 1 upgrade per 4 progress, so you need to research 4 times to go up once and unlock one of the things on there, and then you can go further and further into a research tree or kind of multitask different ones. July 29th, 2020. After that same friend, Besha, complained multiple times about wealth system, I created map objectives. This will allow for card advantage and something to do in game when you can't play anything because you don't have enough wealth or elements. You can run around and explore the map, move your guy on the terrain. I was showing this game to people with Besha there. He's making a game as well. We bounce ideas off of each other. He started like complaining and shit talking my game about how I can't play the cards to other people. I get that. He comes from Yu-Gi-Oh, where no card has a cost. You can just play anything. Graceful Charity, Pot of Greed, cost 0. I play the card. I get 2 cards. I draw 3 cards. I discard 2, and I have a stack of Yu-Gi-Oh cards that are banned that's like this big, cards I can't play because the game design is the thing Konami does. Apparently, they balance their games. Sometimes, I don't know, maybe that's a thing that game companies do. I also have a bunch of Magic cards that are banned, can't use, like Necropotence, Wheel of Fortune. They can only be used in these really niche formats where anything goes, such as Elder Dragon, Highlander. You can use like busted cards because there's only 1 of them in that format, Elder Dragon Highlander, aka Commander. I need to kind of go back from ranting. That was a extended rant. I wanted to mention that in videos a bunch of times, how Okay, back to what I was originally ranting about. Besha was going on about this game, and I was pissed off because I kind of had this unspoken agreement that we wouldn't shit talk each other's games in front of other people when you're trying to show it to people. And then he's like, "Oh, well, if you play my game with me, I'll play with you." And I was like, "All right, I'll play your game." And I played through his game with him, and he was like, "All right, I'll start playing with you." And then he just like kind of gave up a few minutes in, so that kind of irked me. And instead of revamping my wealth system again, I added on a thing to appeal to these people that are like the girl Veruca Salt in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Don't care how, I want it now! She's like screaming and like running around and trashing the room with the golden goose's eggs. There's something there for the people that want instant gratification, which is a problem in today's society. People I just want to be gratified instantly right away. And I'm not going to pander entirely to them by saying nothing has a cost and you can just play any card, because another thing about this in Yu-Gi-Oh, if you were getting into it and you have all these crappy monsters, there's like this Jin who has 1800 attack, and he was like the best 4-star monster, and all these other 4-star monsters were just a piece of crap compared to him when you're getting into Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid. Back in the day, maybe it's different now, they have a 2000 attack monster dragon for 4-star that you can just summon, and it's even higher than that now. So that's one of the reasons why there is a wealth and an element cost to cards such as units and armor that you buy in my game, is because I don't want it to have this like in the Wild Wild West. Just whoever has a better 4-star monster just wins the duel. Maybe you have a trap hole or something. Alright, moving on. I drew this little diagram for the anatomy of a Realm Builder card. So we got the border, obviously, but that's obvious, but when you're designing something, you need to really flesh it out and go into the things that may seem obvious to you, but you should still put them out there so it's concrete and you can work with it better. The name, I see it says scroll here, and there's like a little diagram of a scroll. That's initially how I had an idea, is that there would be like a little scroll that it's written on. Additional costs to play, in brackets, text, flavor text, and the name at the bottom for artists, if there's someone else other than me is the artist. Object slots, I wanted to include a diagram in the rules initially, so this is what it would look like if I ever get around to that. 2 hand slots: head, helmet, chest, legs, feet, amulet, bracelet, and accessory. For the first couple of sets, we're just going to focus on having those ones that aren't amulet, bracelet, and accessory, because if you have armor in head, chest, legs, and feet, then you are fully armored and you take 1 less damage from crush, pierce, and slash types. So, for example, you take 0 damage from 1 cut type damage attack, but take 1 damage from an attack that would do 1 cut/1 pierce type attack, and that would effectively break your armor if you don't have armor left on one of those slots. Set design log. I have a page here for set names when I come up with the names. So I have one: Dollhouse, Sin to Win. That's one, that would be a set based on the 7 deadly sins or hell. Metal Mania, Card Hell, Journey North. That's an ice type set, or Back to the North. Astral Journey, or Into the Astral. Return to Tarot, if years down after the first set I want to have like another tarot theme set, or I want to like do a bit of reprint. But if you've ever played Magic cards or Yu-Gi-Oh, you might have mixed feelings about reprints, because you might get like too many of the same card, or it could like bother you as the player. So I'm really iffy about that, so that's kind of on the back burner. Love as a plot device, Entity Research, Bog of Doom, Hammertown. That's the one where I want to introduce metal as an element for you to cast spells and summon monsters with. Steampunk set, don't have a name for that, just have wrote down steampunk. Make that a set. Undead set, Flavor Town, that's another food themed one. Appetite for Destruction, chef and food cards. Thunderous Inspiration, lightning type damage. Discord Dimension, Dr. Discord set. That's like a guy that I thought of, and then he would have like his own set themed around him. Arcane Library, that one would have a lot about spells, books, librarians that silence people and do like shush type spells. A Knights of the Round Table, that is a Arthurian one that I want to do. There's already a lot of knights, so it would be cool to have. I have one of the things written down as a knight. You can summon the Round Table, and it makes knights that you pluck. Knights that you summon are cheaper to summon because you have the Round Table on the ground. Starter decks. I have different kinds of starter decks written down. Milord Ochimi's Force. That would be where you get all the cards necessary to make a Chimmy deck, so you wouldn't have to collect them all by buying a lot of booster packs from the first set. Infernal Legions, that would be a hell themed set. I'm really interested in doing that one. We'll get to that one eventually. We have a money themed deck because I have some units that are more powerful when you have a bunch of money, such as a bouncer. He becomes like more jacked up when you have money because you're like paying him to work out front of your establishment. So that's how I kind of designed a bouncer card. An armory or a weapons room type deck. An arrow and bows type deck. So these would be, I don't know if you're familiar with starter decks, so I'll just give you a bit of information if you're not new to these card games. You can get starter decks in, say, Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh! That give you a bunch of basic cards and a few rares and uncommons to basically start playing right away and give you a bunch of good cards to battle your friends with, so you don't have to buy a bunch of booster packs and make your deck from scratch. That's kind of the appeal of a starter deck. And I have some lore here for what the Milord Ochimi's Force would be. Milord Ochimi found a book called Black Magic Anthologies in the Infernal Realm, and instead of words, it has pictures of monsters. When you play as Chimmy, you can use the book to add monsters from the deck to your hand. More brainstorming. We're gonna go past that one. All right, we're at 27 minutes. I'm looking at the Realm Builder role-playing game, and there's a section for world generation, province abilities, and so like, say the province is a lake. It has +1 water, traversable only by aquatic, amphibian, and ships. So I think we're going to cut it off here. In the next video, we will probably delve into the Realm Builder role-playing game, which is its own separate book.